Deshatarne.
Hare Krishna, Atul Krishna Das Prabhuji. Thank you so much for joining. So, Hare Krishna, everyone. We are so fortunate to have Prabhuji's association. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapala Kamalam Shri Guran Vaishnavam Shra Sri Rupam Shakarajatam Shahakanam Raganatam Vitam Tam Shajivam Shataitam Shavadutam Parichana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shibishakam Vitam Stamantara Guru Ajokta Shri Guru Ganta Charane Age Kori Avandon Vanshakaputru Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. We were discussing how Sri Rupa Goswami and his brother Anupam, they had journeyed to Prayagraj, and their expectation was that they would go to Vrindavan and there meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Goshandor, who had gone to Vrindavan. And ultimately, Rupa Goswami, he remains in Vrindavan after this meeting with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He actually remains in Vrindavan. And as we understand the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, the Goswami-on, these 6 Goswamis, actually there were others. There was Bhugarva Goswami and Lokanath Goswami also, who had arrived in Vrindavan before the 6 Goswamis. So this Goswami-on, they actually developed Vrindavan as we know it today. They established the main temples in Vrindavan. They Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Gorila Prakash. They revealed the pastimes of Brajabhumi in their writings. Kavi Bhakti Shastra Koraya Likon, Kavi Chaitanya Chintan, Chaitanya Kotashuni Chaitanya Chintan, Kavi Bhakti Shastra Koraya Likon. In Vrindavan, they sat and they wrote Bhakti Shastras, the literature which describes the conclusions of bhakti. And Mahaprabhu specifically ordered them to do that because he himself, Mahaprabhu, prema veshe ochetan, he was constantly falling down in love of Godhead and completely overwhelmed with the prema bhakti, the bhav bhakti, Radha bhav, Krishna prema. And in this way, his distribution of love of Godhead was very ecstatic and spontaneous. So in order to provide a logical structure for his movement, for his teachings, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he ordered the 6 Goswamis, particularly Rupa and Sanatana, and they resided in Vrindavan for this purpose. So Mahaprabhu, he would sometimes explain that because of the order of Sachimata, maybe we didn't discuss that with you, but we could discuss another time how Mahaprabhu, having taken sannyas, he was at that time trying to go to Vrindavan. This was before this meeting now with Rupa Goswami. This is 4 years prior. Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas 4 years before. And even at that time, Mahaprabhu, having taken sannyas, he was journeying for Vrindavan. And Nityananda Prabhu, he made an arrangement because it was too intolerable for the Navadip Basis that Gauranga would simply leave without some, so at least some departure, at least some ceremonial departure, it was too much that he just left in the middle of the night. And actually at that time in Shantipur, they brought Sachimata, they brought all the devotees, Mahaprabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, he told the cowherd boys who are on the bank of the Ganga that when you see the tall sannyasi figure with the golden limbs, Gauranga, who's constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord and absorbed in love of Godhead, when you see him and he inquires from you which way is Vrindavan, you point him toward the Ganga. You tell him it's the Jamuna. So the cowherd boys, they did that. And Gauranga, seeing those cowherd boys taking their direction from them, he assumed the Ganga was the Jamuna, and he jumped in and floated down the Ganga, offering prayers to Jamuna. And then he came to Shantipur, and Advaita Thakur was standing on the bank of the Ganga to welcome Mahaprabhu. This is all the arrangement of Nitai Goshai. And seeing Mahaprabhu, Advaita Thakur mentioned, seeing Advaita Thakur, Mahaprabhu mentioned, Thakur, you have also come to Vrindavan. And Advaita Goshai, he replied that wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. So then Mahaprabhu, he remained in Shantipur for 10 days. And all the devotees from Navadip, he suddenly took sannyas. We were discussing that previously, how in order to capture the smartas and the atheists and the scholars, academics, and the student class in Navadip, who actually were not participating in the Sankirtan Andolan, the Sankirtan movement in Navadip Dham, in the house of Srivas Thakur and Chandrasekhar Acharya, Sachinandan was performing kirtan every night. And pastimes throughout Odia. Eshikaniya Shab Nadiya Fichin Neche, Go Nitai Radha Krishna Bol the Bol, Bolo de Shabai, Eshikaniya, taking these teachings, Shab Nadiya, all over Navadip. Fichin Neche, Go Nitai, Fichin Neche, wandering and dancing, Go Nitai. Radha Krishna Bol the Bol, Bolo de Shabai. So the Sankirtan movement was going on in Nadia, but the smartas, the ritualistic Brahmins, the atheists, the materialists, the academics, the scholars were not appreciating the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, they were critical of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, because being critical of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually that will be to their tremendous detriment, because the Lord is coming to bestow mercy. Krishna Prema Pradayate, we'll discuss this verse today, spoken by Rupa Goswami. Krishna Prema Pradayate, he's coming to freely distribute love of Godhead, not taking advantage of that kindness. They're condemned and they're criticizing. There was an incident, we can discuss it in detail another time, where the student class were actually threatening to beat Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And for this reason, he decided to take sannyas. Tobe more deke she udharibe charan, ei mote udharibu shakal bhubon. Vrindavan Das Thakur was explaining the reason for Mahaprabhu's sannyas, that Tobe more deke, when they see me, she udharibe charan, they will fall down and clasp my feet. Udharibe charan. Ei mote Udharibo, Shakal Bhuban. Amote, in this way, Udharibo, I will deliver Shakal Bhuban, the entire universe, including the envious, including the academic scholars, the atheists, the materialists, who are actually critical of the Sankirtan movement. But even at that time, even today in India, even in the modern times in India, still, to some extent, people will show respect to a sannyasi in the saffron robes. What to speak of 500 years ago. So for this reason, Mahaprabhu took sannyas. He was planning to go, actually he took sannyas for preaching, but he was desiring to go to Vrindavan. Nityananda Prabhu brought him to Shantipur, all the devotees, and then he arranged all the devotees from Navadip. In fact, describes that Srila Advaita Thakur, he hosted all of the devotees, all of the people of Navadip down, all of them, all of the devotees, all of the general people, all of the elderly people, all of the ladies, all of the children. They all came, mentioned. So he accommodated them all for 10 days. And how many people were in Navadip? Well, Navadip Shampati, Gay Boni Bade Pari. Who can describe the glories of Navadip Dham? Ek Ganga Gate, Lokalok Shnan Kore. In one ghat, Lokalok, 100,000 people were taking bath. And there were many, many ghats. You can just imagine how populous, how densely populated was Navadip Dham at that time. You may wonder, well, what happened there? We don't say, well, after the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sometime later, 100 years later, there was the course of Ganga changed. And she inundated all of the Mayapur area with Ganga Jal, this flood. It was all submerged in water for 300 years under the Ganga. For 300 years, all of Mahaprabhu's pastime places. And then sometime around 150 years ago, again, the Ganga moved, and these eternal pastime places of Mahaprabhu again were revealed but it was just land, farming land occupied. None of the pastime places in Mahaprabhu were known. And Thakur Bhaktivinoda, who he's the Param Guru of Srila Prabhupada, the Guru of Shanant Shashi Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He discovered the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here in Mayapur. Actually, we're sitting here. Just literally, I could throw a pebble and it would almost reach Jogpit Janmastan, Shishachinandan Mahaprabhu Janmastan. It's just here, not far. I can go on the roof. I can see the temple, Mahaprabhu's birthplace. So that was identified by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It had been lost. And subsequently, all of the pastime places in Mayapur that you visited, and we pray you will again visit. Such places were all identified by Shridhar Saraswati Thakur. You'll find Srivasangan and Murari Gupta's house and the various ghats and all of these pastime places. Chankaji Samadhi, we went there actually. So all of these places had been submerged under the waters of the Ganga for 300 years. And then when the Ganga again moved, then Shridhar Saraswati Thakur actually came and they revived these holy places in Mayapur. So for that reason, it doesn't appear the opulence of Mayapur seems to have been washed away into the Bay of Bengal by the waters of Maganga. And now the movement of Shridhar Saraswati Thakur and Thakur Bhaktivinoda, the movement of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and specifically Srila Prabhupada's preaching, worldwide preaching, again, Mayapur is being developed, actually, specifically because of the effect of Srila Prabhupada's coming to this planet. Even His Grace Janani Vas Das Brahmachari, the head pujari of ISKCON Mayapur, he mentioned to me on one occasion that when he was first here in Mayapur 50 years ago, he's been here 50 years worshipping the deities, 50 years ago. Gorpunima Day, he said around 50 people would come, a few people from Calcutta. And there was a few Gaudiya Mat, there was Chaitanya Mat and Jogpit were there, but this was not frequented. 50 years ago, before ISKCON began its worldwide preaching and development of Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. And now the tens of thousands every day are visiting Mayapur. So the great acharyas, this is their mission, but particularly Srila Prabhupada's coming to this planet and spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. That has again brought the world's attention to Mayapur Dham. And we're about to open the Temple of Vedic Planetarium within a year or two. Adbhut Mandir Hoibe Prakash Bhagavad Bhakti Nityananda Prabhu predicts that from this temple, which will appear 500 years after the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was all predicted by Nitai Goshai. From this temple, which ISKCON is building, the Sankirtan movement will be spread all over the world. So when this temple in Mayapur, Temple of Vedic Planetarium, when that is opened, actually there will be a great surge in the spreading of Krishna consciousness all over the planet. There will be a great surge. This is predicted, that from the opening of this temple, the Sankirtan movement will spread all over the world. So we can expect. So you should be ready. You should not be an outsider by that time. You should be part of this movement. You should have given your life to the Sankirtan movement if you want to perfect your life. If you want to make your life glorious. Look, even the foreign people have seen the importance of this and are giving their life to development of Mayapur and the spreading of the Sankirtan movement all over the world. But this is Bharatiya Sanskriti. This is the culture of great Bharat Bhumi. This is the culture, Krishna consciousness. Bhagwan Krishna, he appeared in Bharat Bhumi, Brajadam. This is the culture of Bharat Bhumi, the ancient culture of Bharat Bhumi, the wealth of Bharat Bhumi. Now, even the foreign people have seen the importance of this and have given their life. What to speak of those from Bharat? Certainly, this is your great opportunity for you to give your life to the Sankirtan mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Do it quickly. Don't delay. Become an inside Antaranga Bhaktagan. Become an internal. It means a serious devotee. who practices Krishna consciousness every day and participates in spreading Krishna consciousness. That's what's meant by a serious devotee. A casual devotee is one who worships Krishna just for personal benefit. That's called Konishta Adhikari, beginning devotee. Many people in that category, that is good. But actually, we should come to the Madhyam, the advanced devotee platform, where one is very serious about the practice of Bhagavad Bhakti. That Krishna Yashigiri Manasa Diksha Shichet Pranati Bishcha Bhajantam Isham. Bhajantam Isham, worshipping the Lord every day, chanting the holy name regularly on the beads, and taking the Diksha, associating with the Vaishnavas, serving them. Like that, at least before the Temple of Vedic Planetarium opens, and then you'll be part of the entourage, which is so glorious. Make your life glorious. So Shantipur, all the devotees from Navadip came. The opulence of Navadip, so many came. ISKCON is reviving that opulence. So many came to Shantipur. And Shachimata, when she first, Sachimata, can you imagine? We'll describe in great detail on another occasion, Sachimata, but she saw Gauranga with head shaven. She cried, drenched his cloth with her tears as they embraced. She took him on her lap. You can see a picture of Sachimata embracing Mahaprabhu on her lap, with his head on her lap in Shantipur. At that time, she spoke. The first thing she said, don't do like Vishwarup. Don't do like Vishwarup. As we mentioned, we'll explain in detail in full on another occasion. It's very fascinating. It's very wonderful narration, what Sachimata spoke at that time. But on occasion, Gauranga Mahaprabhu would say that upon the order of my mother, I am here in Jagannath Puri. On the order of my mother, I'm here in Jagannath Puri. So I can't do what needs to be done in Vrindavan, develop all of the... When Mahaprabhu visited Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu discovered Radha Kund. I think you visited Vrindavan. Nannishta Prabhu, Radha Kund, such a developed place. Radha Kund, so famous. Vrindavan, so famous. Well, when Mahaprabhu went, Radha Kund was not even known. It had become lost and forgotten. And Mahaprabhu personally, he identified Radha Kund. He took bath in the pond, and subsequently Goswamis developed. So you can just imagine how undeveloped was Srila Shri Vrindavan Dham when Mahaprabhu visited there. So there was a great requirement there of necessity of developing Vrindavan Dham. Mahaprabhu said, I am kept here in Jagannath Puri by the order of my mother. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, he empowered the Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. H.I. Goshai Kori Charana Bandhan Chaha Hoite Vigananash Abhishta Puran. H.I. Goshai Charane Bandhan, those who glorify these six Goswamis. Charane Bandhan, those who offer prayers to their lotus feet and appreciate them. Jaha Hoite, those who do that. Vigananash, Vigna, all of the obstacles, Nash, are destroyed. Abhishta Puran. Abhishta, your desires, your spiritual desires become fulfilled just by H.I. Goshai, Charane Bandhan, glorifying the six Goswamis. So this is their particular contribution to the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, they're all liberated, eternally liberated souls. Manjari, Sri Rupa Manjari, the Radha Shaki, an associate of Sri Radhika, who appeared in this world simply to associate with Gauranga Mahaprabhu and serve him in this mission. Now, Gauranga, having taken sannyas, Shantipur, then on the order of Sachimata, he went to Vrindavan. As we mentioned, the Goswamis, they took responsibility of developing Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu remained in Jagannath Puri. He personally preached in South India, and he delegated the responsibility, which was very important to him. He was very much concerned about the preaching in Bengal, and he delegated that to Nityananda Prabhu. Nityanande age aggadilo, Nityanande aggadilo. He ordered Nityananda, Nityanande aggadilo, Jao, go to Desh, you go to Bengal. Onalgol, Prema Bhakti, Koraho, Prakash. And there, you, without restriction, you preach Krishna consciousness, Prem Bhakti, Krishna consciousness, love of Godhead. So that was specifically delegated to Nityananda Prabhu. So Mahaprabhu, as I think we mentioned last week, that he went to Jagannath Puri, but he went to Vrindavan after 2 years, 4 years after sannyas. So the first 2 years was the South Indian tour. Then he was kept in Jagannath Puri for 2 years more by the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy. And then eventually he was given permission to go to Vrindavan. He attempted to go via Bengal and then came back. And at that time he met Rupa and Sanatan in Ramkeli. And there are many reasons. We hear Mahaprabhu's Gaudadesh, Taramode Choi Bot Shor, Gamona Gamon, Kabu Gaud, Kabu Dokin, Kabu Vrindavan. He went to go to Bengal, personally preaching in Bengal. And he went there to take bath in Maganga, to seek Sachimata, to deliver those smarters and atheists. That's described when he went to Vidyanagar. We can describe that later for you also in great detail from Chaitanya Bhagavat on a later occasion. And then Sanatana Goswami mentioned that you're traveling with such a crowd. And this is such a show. Because Mahaprabhu was ecstatic. All the devotees from Bengal were accompanying him to Vrindavan. And then he accepted the advice of Srila Sanatana Goswami, and reaching Kanai Natasala, he decided to return to Jagannath Puri. And then shortly after that, he journeyed to Vrindavan through Jharkhand with Balabhadra Bhattacharya and one Brahmin assistant, and he delivered the tigers and the elephants and the deer and the wild boar. They're all embracing and kissing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and rolling on the ground in love of Godhead. If he can do that to the animals, what can he do for a person who's actually seriously chanting his name? Poshu paki jure, pashana bidore, shuni jara gunagato. Poshu paki jure. The poshu, the animals, and the paki, the birds, jure, they cry. Pashana bidore, the stone melts. Shuni jara gunagata. Shuni jara guna, when you hear about their qualities, when you hear about their mercy. Param Koruna, Pohutu Ijon, Nitai Gaura Chandra. Param Koruna, the most merciful incarnations. Shab Avatara, Shar Shiromani, Kevala Ananda Kanda. Shab Avatar, of all the avatars, Shar Shiromani. They are the cream of all the avatars. It's like you have the milk and you have the cream. Shar is called cream. Shar Shiromani. Shiromani, the crest jewel on the head of all the avatars. Shab Avatar, Shah Shiromani, Kevala Ananda Kanda. Because their path, their kanda, is Keval Ananda. It is simply bliss. Hearing and chanting, taking prasad, Shadhu Shanga. So if you can do that to the birds and the beasts, Poshu Paki Jude, make the birds and the beasts cry. What to speak of one who's seriously chanting, following his instructions and seriously chanting the holy name? What can happen to such a person? So Mahaprabhu, he went through Jharkhand, he went through the forest, he arrived in Vrindavan, but he didn't remain in Vrindavan. It was too intense. The love of Godhead that he was experiencing was 1,000 times more than even what he had been experiencing in Navadip and South Indian tour, Jagannath Puri, 1,000 times more. So he remained only for a couple of weeks, and then Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he brought him out of Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu himself didn't even know how many days, is day or night. He was brought out of Vrindavan by Balabhadra Bhattacharya because the ecstasy was just too much. So now he's coming back, and he's in Prayag, coming along the bank of the Ganga, returning to Bengal, returning to Puri. He's in Prayag. Actually, he travels all the way along the Ganga, and then goes back through Bengal and through Shantipur, and this way he returns. He doesn't go back through the Jharkhand forest. He goes to Varanasi, delivers preaches to Sanatana Goswami. But at that time, in that first visit to Gaur, Ramkeli, Mahaprabhu met Rupa and Sanatana, and then he inspired them so much And then very quickly, Rupa Goswami was able to extricate himself from his service to the Mughal government under the Nawab Hussain Shah. And along with his younger brother, they left. And we were discussing in the last session how the astonishing darshan of Gauranga Mahaprabhu that they had in Prayag, with tens of thousands of people were accompanying Mahaprabhu, some rolling on the ground, some crying, laughing, dancing, chanting the holy name in ecstasy with the arms raised, Mahaprabhu dancing in complete ecstasy, or chanting the holy name. Premaveshe nache Prabhu Hari Dhoni Kori Udvabahu Kori Bolo Hari Hari Udvabahu Kori, with his arms raised, Bolo Bolo Hari Hari, he's calling out, chant the holy name, and tens of thousands of people are surrounding Mahaprabhu, chanting the holy name. Prabhu Mahima Deki, Lok Chamatkar, everyone was completely Chamatkar, astonished. Prabhu Mahima Deki, seeing these grand, the glorious Mahima, the wonderful activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prayage, Prabhu Lila, Nari Bani Bari, who can describe the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag? So they saw him, Rupa and Anupam. They saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this way, but they didn't approach him at that time. So subsequently, they found where Mahaprabhu was staying, and then the next day they visited him, his residence on the banks of Madhanga, not far from Bindu Madhav temple, not far from the Triveni Ghat. They visited Mahaprabhu at that time. So we can read a few verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're reading from 46, 47, 45 onwards of chapter 19, Madhva Lila, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll read a few verses. So they arrived at the residence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya, Rupa Goswami and Anupam. Nana Shlok Pori Ute Pore Bar Bar Prabhu Deki Premaveshe Hoilo Duhar. So we hear that the Rupa and Sanatan is so exalted. We don't hear so much about Anupam, the younger brother. So here it mentions that Prabhu Deki, Premaveshe Hoilo Duha, seeing Prabhu Deki, Premaveshe, love of Godhead entered into them. Premaveshe Hoilo Duha, they're overwhelmed with love of Godhead. So there's Anupam also, a Prema Bhakta, Prem, love of Godhead, he had also. Premaveshe Hoilo Duha, they both had love of Godhead, overwhelmed. Nana Shlok Pori, they were, when they first met the Lord, Nana Shlok Pori, this is very interesting. They didn't say some useless chit chat. Oh, how are you? How was your journey from Vrindavan? How is the weather in Vrindavan? Oh. They didn't do that. They saw him. Nana Shlok Puri. They glorified the Lord with verses, slok from Shastra. What slok is they not mentioned, but we'll hear some of the sloks that they mentioned. Nana Shlok Puri, Ute. Pore bar bar, falling down on the ground, Bar bar, again and again. And ute, get up. Nana shlok pori ute, pore bar bar, falling down on the ground again and again. Reciting various verses, they stood up and fell down again and again. So, Shri Rup Dekhiya Prabhu Prashanna Hoilo Mon. It's not that he's an inert stone in the temple and he stands there. No. Shri Rup Dekhiya, when Mahaprabhu saw Rupa Goswami, Shri Rup Dekhiya, Prabhu Prashanna Hoilo Mon, he became very pleased, Prashanna, satisfied, very, very joyful, Prashanna Hoilo Mon in his mind, seeing Rupa Goswami. In fact, the advanced Vaishnava Guru, when he sees the serious disciple who has such a mood of service toward the Guru, and love for the Guru and appreciation for the Guru, in feelings of indebtedness and dedication and commitment and offering one's life for the service of the Guru. When the spiritual master sees such a disciple, he's very joyful. Shri Rup Dekhiya Prabhu Prashanna Hoilamon Uto Rup Aisho Balila Bachan. He said, come, Uto, get up. Uto Rup Asho, come. Bolila Bachan, he said. And then Mahaprabhu, he began to reflect that how fortunate you are, Rupa Goswami, because the previous time when they met, at that time Rupa Goswami was engaged in as a government employee of the Mughal governorship, Mughal sovereignty of Bengal. So he was very much entangled in material life. Prabhupada actually comments that at that time that even such a person can become entangled. Even a Nitya Mukta, eternally liberated soul, Sri Rupa Manjari. But of course, it's all Leela, but Prabhupada's making the point is how tricky, how complex is this material world? How entangling. You get caught up in stuff, even you're advanced, he was caught up. That session also we can discuss in more detail on another occasion. So Mahaprabhu is so happy to see him that, wow, he's freed himself from all of that. He's a free man. And now he's come to fulfill my order. He's coming to see me. He's come here to see me. It's not that by chance they happen to pass on the road. Hey, Rupa Goswami. Hey, how are you? Hey, good. Hey, Goswami. Hey, Mahaprabhu, how are you? Nice to see you here. No. By chance they met. No, he went there. Susrusha Bhajana Vigyan, Ananda Ninna Shunyaridim Ipshita Shankalabdha. They Bhajanti Ananda, those who are advanced, Rupa Goswami and Rupa Goswami, Upadesha Rita. He himself advised us, Susrusha Bhajana Vigyan Anandam. Bhajana Vigyan Anandam. Those who are Vigyan realized in the Ananda Bhakti, the unalloyed love of Krishna. Bhajana Vigyan Anandam. Nindari Shunya Ridim, they have no inclination to criticize others. Ipshita Shangalabdha. Ipshita, you should desire Shangalabdha, to get their association. It's not that, well, if it comes by chance, I'll take it, that's great. No. Ipshita Shanga, you should look for that association. You should seek that association. You have to go out of your way to associate with Bhajana Vigyan Anandam, those who are advanced in unalloyed devotional service, loving Krishna, advanced. You should seek their association, seek out their association. So Mahaprabhu was very happy to see that Rupa Goswami had given up everything and given his life to fulfill the order of Mahaprabhu. Although it wasn't particularly mentioned, it will be mentioned after this meeting in Prayag. It wasn't mentioned in Ramkeli, but Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, he understood that to go to Vrindavan. He went to see Mahaprabhu, but he's coming. Mahaprabhu's saying that he's given up everything and he's coming to fulfill my order, and that's naturally he'll be so pleased to see such a devotee. And so similarly, the advanced devotees are very pleased to see when a person sacrifices and gives up the material life and embraces the spiritual life in the service of the Guru and the service of the Lord. That's very pleasing to the Vaishnavas when they see someone doing that and advancing in Krishna consciousness. Very pleasing. Mahaprabhu quoted a verse, how dear, explaining how dear is the devotee to the Lord. We're discussing that the Lord is pleased when he sees the devotee come to the temple, when he hears the devotee chant his name, when he sees the devotee offer the bhoga. The Lord is pleased by that. When he sees the devotee offer devotional service, when he sees the devotee give his life, well, he's very pleased by that. Mahaprabhu quotes verses from Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari Bhakti Vilas? Yeah, Hari Bhakti Vilas. Name Bhakta Chaturvedi Mad Bhakta Sva Pachapriyaha Tasmai Jayam Tatograyam Shacha Puja Jatahi Aham. He's quoting the Sanskrit verse from the Hari Bhakti Vilas that Name Bhakta Chaturvedi, even a person may be a Chaturvedi, which means Chaturvedi is Trivedi and Chaturvedi. Chaturvedi means that the scholar of the four Vedas, Brahmin, who studied the four Vedas, not just born in the Brahmin family and has thread, but actually has studied the Vedas and is conversant in the four Vedas. Chaturvedi is called Chaturvedi. So such a person, they're not as dear to the Lord. Me bhakta Chaturvedi. If the Chaturvedi, even though such a scholar of the Vedas, if he's not a devotee, na me bhakta Chaturvedi. The Chaturvedi who is not my devotee, the Chaturvedi who is not my devotee, mad bhakta swapachapriya, he's not as dear to me as my devotee, even though the devotee may be born in a family of meat eaters. In fact, swapacha means dog eaters. So the family, the person born in the family of dog eaters, who becomes Krishna's devotee, not that he remains a dog eater. He gives up dog eating. But from birth, he was coming from a degraded, because this is the principle of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. However possibly fallen and degraded you can possibly become. The holy name can deliver you. So naturally, such a person becomes delivered from their sinful activities of the past. They become delivered. They're able to overcome those sinful habits. So such a person, even though coming from a degraded background, is more dear to the Lord than the person who's so learned in the Vedas, but not his devotee. So just see how dear is Krishna's devotee. How dear is Krishna's devotee to Krishna. Tasmayi dhyayam. You should give everything to that person. Tato grayam, whatever that person offers, you should accept. Shacha puja chatahi aham. And that person is as worshipable. That means the person born in a family of dog eaters who's become Krishna's devotee. Mahaprabhu is saying that that person is as worshipable as I am. Sha chapuja jatahi aham. Sha chapuja, he is as worshipable as I am. So in this way, in this lila between Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, Mahaprabhu is establishing the principles of his Sankirtan movement. Shlok puri duhare koilo alingon, saying this, quoting this verse, duha koila alingon, Mahaprabhu embraced those two brothers, embraced. Imagine being embraced by Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I mean, that'd be something you never forget, seeing Mahaprabhu, speaking with him, embracing you. Kripate duha matai dorila charon, and out of mercy, Mahaprabhu, he placed his lotus feet on their heads. So then these two brothers began to offer prayers to the Lord. Having received that mercy, they began, Prabhu Kripa Paya, Duha Duihat Judi with in the Pranam Mudra, placing their hands together. Dinna Honna Shtuti Kore Binoya Achari, with great humility, they began to glorify. Once again, it is a glorify, they're glorifying the Lord. In the temple, you go before the deity of the Lord, you glorify the Lord, offer prayers. In fact, you don't need to ask the deity in the temple, the Vigraha, Prakrita Vigraha, the temple deity. You don't need to ask for things. Oh, this problem, that problem, and pain in the back, it never goes away, doctors can't help. And then my daughter, not married yet, and my son exams, help me with all these things. Actually, you don't need to ask these things in the temple. You don't need to ask. Because Yai Bhajanti, in Gita, Krishna explains, Jai Bhajanti, one who worships me, Jai Bhajanti, Tumam Bhaktya, with devotion, with love for me. Mayite, they're absorbed in me, Teshu Cha Apyaham, and I'm absorbed in them. I become their friend. Krishna is explaining in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Ye bhajanti tamam bhaktya mayite teshu cha apyaham. Those who worship me with devotee, I'm a friend to them. Those who worship me with love, I'm a friend to them. They're a friend to me, and I become a friend to them. So if Krishna is your friend, you don't need to ask. He's your friend. He sees. He'll provide. Yoga kshemam bahami aham. Ananna chintayantamam. The more you become absorbed, ananna chintayantamam, the more you absorb your mind in the Lord and forget about your selfish requirements, you just become Krishna conscious, much chitta, become absorbed in Krishna. Ye bhujanti that yoga kshemam bahami aham. Ananishchintayantamam. Ananishchintayantamam. You're thinking of, you absorb your mind in me without any other interest. Anandachinta. It's called anandachintayantamam. Absorbing your mind in me with complete attention and complete dedication and loyalty and love. Yoga kshemam bahamyaham. I provide everything that devotee requires. So that the path of Bhagavad Bhakti is to love the Lord, become a lover of the Lord. How do you do that? You glorify the Lord. You serve the Lord. And you don't need to worry about your own circumstances. The Lord will provide everything. Here I am, I'm sitting, I have my own ashram. And I've never had a job. I joined this movement when I was 19 or 20 years old. I never had a job. I never had employment, like a few part-time jobs. But here I am endowed with such facilities. I'm a private ashram here in my Buddham, broadcasting across the world. But I never had a job, never worked for these things. So how are these things coming? Fancy camera, everything. How these things are coming? Because Krishna says, we are trying to serve the Lord. We're giving whatever energy we have to propagate the mission of the Lord, propagate the glories of the Lord, and everything is provided for that. And he's providing for the materialists anyway, even though they're thinking, prakriti kriyamana niguna ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. They're thinking that as a result of my effort, I'm acquiring the house, the car, the finance, the balance, the holidays, sort of the facilities. It's not as a result of your effort, it's provided by the Lord. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti mani. He's thinking, I am the cause. Prakriti kriyamanani. But it's all under the control of the Lord. So if he's giving to those who are not even worshipping him, then what to speak of the ones who are worshipping him? Of course he'll provide, even without asking. So being in front of the Lord, they offer prayers. They didn't ask for anything, they offered prayers. And this famous prayer, Rupa Goswami prays, Namo Maha Varannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Nande Gauda Dushay Namaha. Rupa Goswami composed that prayer. We chant that prayer when we're offering bhoga to the Lord. So he composed that prayer. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, you are the Supreme Lord Krishna, Krishna Chaitanya. Namne Gauda Tushe, and you're golden. You're not blackish like Krishna. Namne Gauda Tushe, in a golden color. Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate, you most merciful incarnation, most munificent incarnation. Krishna Prema Pradayate, you're complete Pradaya. Pradayam, he's giving completely. Sampradaya. Krishna Prema Pradayate, he's giving love of Godhead. So very interesting, Rupa Goswami, he's quoting that verse, but only he had met Mahaprabhu once in Ramkelly. We don't hear a complete indoctrination at that time in Ramkelly. Mahaprabhu not informing Rupa Goswami of his movement, of his mission, but Rupa Goswami knew. He knows. The full understanding of the mission of Mahaprabhu will come to Rupa Goswami shortly. Now we'll hear, we won't hear today, but on another occasion, we'll hear that Mahaprabhu instructs Rupa Goswami at Prayag. He remains there for a month and instructs Rupa Goswami. That is this 19th chapter of Madhya Lila. But at this time, it seems that Rupa Goswami doesn't understand the full extent of Mahaprabhu's appearance, but he does. Krishna Prema Pradayate. You've come to distribute love of Godhead freely, and you are Krishna Chaitanya in the golden form. That's text 53 of chapter 19. So we can take questions at this stage, where the idea is we finish around about 9. We can always carry on a later occasion to discuss what happens subsequently. Vallabha came and the interaction between Vallabha, Rupa Goswami, and Anupam and Mahaprabhu in Prayag that we can describe on a subsequent meeting. So are there questions on the topics discussed today? Please raise your digital hands. Shania Agawal, there's a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I just wanted to know, can you please guide us as to how we can make ourselves eligible to be accepted by the Guru? Apart from following the regulative principles and chanting, what else can we do?
Well, that's sufficient, actually. Following the regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds for a year, that's all that's required. So whatever else you can do will be bonus. But if you can just do that, that's enough. And what else you can do? Well, that is the order. You're already following the order, the Guru, to follow the principles, chant 16 rounds. That is the order. So you're already serving the Guru and following the order of the Guru. Then if you can do additional seva, if you can contribute to the spreading of Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna, following the principles, that will keep you in Krishna consciousness. But if in addition to that, you can contribute toward the spreading of Krishna consciousness, then, of course, that makes you much more, that will bring you much closer to the Guru. And we have a course. You can take the course. It should be offered. It could be offered online there by ISKCON Mangalore, ISKCON Disciples Course. So that course also you should take to get a full training. That is a 25-hour course, 10 lessons at least, 10, 12 lessons with assessment. And you need to complete that before taking initiation. So that course definitely gives you a complete education on what it means to be an ideal disciple of a Guru in ISKCON. So we recommend you take that course. In fact, it's compulsory before taking initiation. You take that course. Other questions on today's topics? Yes, Rupali Rani.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I could not understand what Shachi Mataji said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Well, Rupali, I mentioned we can describe that pastime in detail on another occasion. But Sachimata, yes, she said, don't do like Vishwarup. So Vishwarup was Mahaprabhu's elder brother. He was about 10 years older than Mahaprabhu. He's actually an incarnation of Nityananda Prabhu. His name is Vishwarup. He was very dear to Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra. In fact, they had 6 daughters who all passed away upon being born. And there's a reason for that, which can be described another time. 6 daughters, Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata had 6 daughters, and they all passed away. And then Vishwarup was born. So they were very happy. His son was born, and then he remained Vishwarup. And he was their life. He was everything to them. And then there's a whole series, a whole discussion on Vishwarup Sannyas as described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Adi Konda, chapter 7, Vishwarup Sannyas. I can share that with you sometime. So they just began to mention that, oh, maybe it's time we started to look for a wife. For Vishwarup, he was 17. Should look for a wife. So just hearing that, because they live in cottages with thatched walls. So anything that's said in the cottage, everyone hears at home. So Vishwarup heard them discussing. We should find a wife for him. And then he left. That's it. Next day, they never heard of him again. Vishwarup. No one ever heard of him again. None of the Vaishnavas in Mayapur. He just left immediately. As soon as they heard that they were going to arrange a marriage for him, he left Vishwarup. So Mahaprabhu, that Vishwarup Sannyas, it has significance in many ways. When Mahaprabhu was in Puri, he requested permission from Ramananda Roy and Bhattacharya that let me go to South India to search out Vishwarup. And then eventually Mahaprabhu, he came to Pandharpur in West India, Pandharpur and Maharashtra, Pandharpur. And there he heard news that Vishwarup, his older brother, the great sannyasi, had departed and attained samadhi. So that was Vishwarup. So that was so painful for Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata. And then just imagine Sachimata, that Vishwarup took sannyas. And then shortly after that, Jagannath Mishra left the world. So Sachimata, at that time, Nimai wasn't married. He wasn't married. He got married after that Vishwarup took sannyas. Jagannath Mishra, he never saw the marriage of Nimai. So then it was only Sachimata and Nimai. And for several years, they were only the two of them. We chant Jai Shachinandan, Jai Shachinandan, Jai Shachinandan Gaudhari. Why we chant Jai Shachinandan? Because there is no one as dear to Lord Chaitanya as Sachimata. Gaudadesh more Dui Shamashrai. In Gaudadesh, I have two shelters. Janani, Janavi, E Dui Doyamoy. My mother and Ma Ganga. These two are very merciful. So Mahaprabhu's attachment to Sachimata was so deep. And Sachimata's devotion and love for Nimai, Nimai was everything for him, for her. So he took sannyas. She was devastated. They brought Sachimata to Shantipur. Shantipur is the next village up past Mayapur, Shantipur, the house of Advaita Thakur. And then she arrives, Mahaprabhu there embraces, she's on her lap, she's crying. And then she speaks, do not do like Vishwarup, who never again gave me audience. You take sannyas, okay, that's happened, but at least you go to Jagannath Puri. So then devotees from Puri will come to Bengal to take bath in Maganga, and the devotees from Bengal will go to Jagannath Puri to take darshan of Jagannath Shami, and this way I will hear. And she said, and you may even come to Bengal to take bath, and Mahaprabhu did. So she said, do not do like Vishwarup, who never again, we never heard anything. You please keep in contact with us through the coming and going of the devotees. And that's what she meant when she said, do not do like Vishwarup. There's so many messages here. What are these questions? Wonderful. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay. No questions there. You can type your questions in the chat too. No questions, just all exclamations of appreciation. Adish. Adish, yes, Adish. What's happening, Adish?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Adish, can hear.
Prabhuji, could you please explain about Srila Prabhupada ji?
Not today, Adish. That's a big topic. He's the founder Acharya of ISKCON. He's the principal Shiksha Guru of all devotees for now and for 10,000 years to come. He's the great Acharya of the modern age who has come to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. The empowered representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, prophet of spirituality for the whole world for the next 10,000 years. And Srila Prabhupada.
And Prabhuji, where did you meet Srila Prabhupada?
Well, it's Adish. It's Adish. What happened? Adish. Was it Adish?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Actually, meeting Srila Prabhupada in person, that's not as important as following his instructions. Because who can meet Prabhupada? Only a small number of people met Prabhupada. I didn't personally see Srila Prabhupada, although I was on the planet when Prabhupada was preaching in the city that I lived in, Melbourne. And my place was not far from just a short distance from the temple. So I came close, and I heard about Prabhupada, but I was only young, 10, 11, 12 years old. But I heard about Prabhupada, and he preached in his city, and he installed Gaur Nitai in the temple in Melbourne. And he said the people of Melbourne have become blessed because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared here. So although I never saw Prabhupada, he personally blessed all the people of the city that I lived in, and I happened to be one of those people. So that's sufficient, because who can see? Who can see? No, it's not so important. It's following instructions. It's becoming his follower and serving him and following his instructions. That's how you become an associate. You can become a more intimate. Many people may have seen, but they may not have listened or heard and accepted Prabhupada as their guide in life. Many people saw, but they didn't do that. So seeing is not important. As most important is to accept Prabhupada as your guide and follow his instructions.
Okay, Prabhuji.
And then you can get the full benefit of his association. Seeing is not so important.
Okay.
That's why he wrote the books.
Okay, Prabhuji.
There's a written question. Among 6 Goswamis, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were especially instructed to write Bhakti Shastri. Is there significance? Yes, that it's a fact that they are the most. Rupa Goswami is the most senior, and that he's the Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale. Sri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam, the desire. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam, the heartfelt desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam. Prabhupada says the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Stapitam Jena Bhutale, who established in this world. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. It's a special mantra for Rupa Goswami, Pranam mantra. So Rupa Goswami is considered a Rashacharya. He's the most senior of the Goswamis and the most intimate student of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa and Sanatan, Rupa Goswami teachings are 1 chapter. Sanatan Goswami's teachings are 4 chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the other Goswamis are mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but not as extensive as Rupa and Sanatan. So that's it. There's not really significance about that. It's just a fact. And we're called Rupanugas. We're Rupanugas. So yes, Rupa Goswami, the most important of the Goswamis.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Niraj. Hare Krishna, Niraj, speak.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Hate, Prabhuji.
Oh, heat.
Yes.
Heat. Yes, heat. Speak.
Yes. So my doubt is that, like, even though Lord Chaitanya is considered the most munificent incarnation, so like, why didn't he forgive Chota Haridas? Like, is there any story behind it?
Hita, yes. That's a different topic, but you see, Mahaprabhu is different moods. Like, for example, as a sannyasi, he is very strict. As a sannyasi, his sannyas vows, very strict. In fact, the ladies would not go close to Mahaprabhu. We never hear him any preaching to any ladies, any associating closely with any. It's not allowed. Didn't allow any ladies to come close. Only with the husband. And even then, it's Mahaprabhu is very strict sannyasi. So that's particularly, so this Chota Haridas, he was in the renounced order, sannyas, he was a renunciate, lal, saffron cloth. So those in the purpose, the significance of the chastisement of junior Haridas is to show that those who are in the renounced order have to be very, very strict to remain an associate of the Lord. That's it. But it's not necessarily, Mahaprabhu doesn't compromise his mercy. But if you accept the renounced order of life in Mahaprabhu's mission, then you have to be very strict and don't be a charlatan renunciate. Apni na kole shikhana na chai ei to shithanta Gita Bhagavad Gai. Only you can preach what you're following yourself, and you cannot preach something that you're not yourself following. It won't be effective. So that's the message there. That's why he was strict with the renunciates.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna. Niraj.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, could you please advise me, like, how to pray to Krishna and what to pray to Krishna to avoid unnecessary illusions which are coming in our way of devotional service, though we try to avoid it very much, Prabhuji. Could you please advise, like, how to pray in the wholeheartedness to Krishna, Prabhuji?
Niraj, you chant Hare Krishna. That's the most important prayer. You chant Hare Krishna and you listen to the Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte, because by hearing the Mahamantra, your heart becomes pure. And then in addition to chanting Hare Krishna, you can recite prayers from Shastra. Just like today, we Namo Mahavanaya. So you have deity Krishna, or you have picture of Krishna, or you come to the temple, you sit before the deity, you sit before the picture. You better to chant prayers, glorifying the Lord. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patita mam vishamam bhavamburo kripaya tava padabhangaja shtita dolishadrishim vichintaya. You offer prayers as given in the Shastra, you recite those prayers. That's the best way to pray to the Lord. You don't need to ask for anything else. You don't need to talk anything else. Don't need to make up your own prayers. You don't need to ask for things. Chant Hare Krishna and glorify the Lord with the prayers in the Shastra. And then all of your desires will be fulfilled. As we mentioned, H.I. Goshai, Tar Charane Bondon, Jaho Hoite Bigananash, Abhishta Puran. One who offers prayers to the 6 Gosamis, one who glorifies the 6 Gosamis. Charane Bondon, one who offers prayers to their lotus feet. Bondana means prayer. It doesn't mean asking things. It means glorifying. Bandhana means reciting prayers. Stuti. Charane bandhan. Jaha hoite. Bignanas. Those who do that. Bignanas. All of the difficulties are removed. Bignanash. All the obstacles are destroyed. Abhishta Puran, and desires are fulfilled. So you don't have to ask for desires to be fulfilled. You don't have to ask for obstacles to be removed. You just have to glorify the 6 Gosamis by offering prayers, reciting prayers. You don't need to ask for anything. So, Niraj, that's the way to pray to the Lord. You glorify the Lord, chant Hare Krishna, sing songs of the acharyas, the bhajans, and recite the prayers recite the slokas from the Shastra for the pleasure of the Lord. All of your obstacles will be removed without even asking, and all of your desires will be fulfilled without even asking for that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
We'll take one question.